A couple years ago, I photographed my daughters at a creek at golden hour, and I walked away with a magazine cover. It was the same spot that I'd shot at dozens of times, and I nailed it. But then I went back about 2 years later, same creek, same girls, same golden hour, and I came home with almost nothing. After 13 years of shooting portraits, I know this location like the back of my hand, and I still came home from that session knowing that I didn't get what I came for. If you've ever had that feeling after a golden hour shoot, you'll want to hear exactly what happened. Because it wasn't bad luck, and whatever went wrong at your session probably wasn't either. Here's what nobody tells you about shooting at golden hour, and it starts with what the light is actually doing when you get there. Golden hour has a reputation in the photography community. Every tutorial, every reel, every piece of photography advice tells you the same thing. Get outside at sunset and the light will be beautiful. Soft, warm, golden, and flattering on everybody. And they're not wrong, that light does exist. I've shot in it, and I've got some of my best images in that sort of light. Golden hour, or as I've started thinking of it since my creek session, golden hour, schmolden hour. The problem with it is what the description leaves out of it in most people's heads. Golden hour is a full hour of gorgeous, wraparound, magazine cover lighting that makes everything look like a dream. But what it actually is a moving window that changes by the minute at a specific location that you may or may not understand on a day that you can't control. And when you walk into it expecting the version of everyone's Instagram feed, you're going to spend your actual golden hour window trying to figure out why it isn't working, while your clients are sitting there in their best clothes waiting for you. If you've ever had a golden hour session go sideways and you couldn't figure out what went wrong, it probably wasn't your fault in the way that you think. It was most likely the light doing something specific that you didn't know it was going to do. But once you understand what it actually does, you stop guessing and you start preparing. But to understand why golden hour fights you, you have to understand what it actually is, because it's not just one thing. I do have a free guide on natural light situations, including this one. It's called the Easy Lighting Guide, and the link is in the description. So let's talk about everything that's actually working against you at golden hour. Golden hour isn't one continuous block of beautiful light. It has phases, and most photographers are trying to shoot in the hardest part of that phase. The first part, where the sky starts getting golden and you think, let's go, is often the worst time to shoot because the sun is still high enough to still be really harsh. You get dappled light through the trees and blown highlights and deep, unflattering shadows, and it's contrasty in all the wrong ways. And the workaround most people know is to just put your subject in some shade to avoid it. But then you lose the entire golden hour effect entirely because the warm light isn't on your subjects anymore. So then you're shooting in open shade with an orange background. So what are you even there for? The actual magic window of golden hour, that soft, gorgeous, everyone faces anywhere they want to kind of lighting, is the last 10 to 20 minutes before the sun fully drops. That's it. And at a lot of locations, even that window is shorter because the sun disappears behind a tree line or a ridge or a building before it even hits the horizon. At the creek where I photographed my daughters, the creek sits below an embankment. So my real window of good light was maybe 10 minutes. I mean, maybe. And the light direction is also constantly shifting. What worked 5 minutes ago doesn't work now. So you're chasing the light in real time. And now add subjects to the equation. You have clients who don't fully understand why you keep moving them. And you have kids who can't stand still on rocky, uneven ground standing in the creek. People who are hot and uncomfortable and getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. And in my case, it was my own daughters, who I can tell you from experience are the hardest subjects I've ever photographed because they're mine. They negotiate, they complain, and they take direction worse than any stranger I've ever worked with. And we were trying to recreate poses that were from a session 2 years earlier, which almost never works because you're chasing a memory instead of shooting what's actually in front of you. And before any of that, there were hours of preparation that went into just getting there. Doing hair, preparing outfits, and getting everyone in the car, and convincing 2 reluctant kids that this was worth their evening. And once you're there, you can't just come back tomorrow, even though they are my kids, because the light's not going to be the same, and the kids won't be in the same outfits, and the logistics of putting it all together again are a real barrier. So there's this weight of all that effort sitting on your shoulders while you're just trying to shoot, and you can feel it. It affects how you direct them, and it affects how you respond when something isn't working. And on top of all that, I was shooting with a lens that I'd never used for client sessions, my 85mm prime lens, because I heard it was great made for portraits. So I had no muscle memory with this lens and no history of being familiar with it, knowing how far I needed to stand back or how close because of the distance of an 85mm prime lens and not being a zoom lens and having to walk closer and farther away to get what you need in the frame. And I didn't bring a fill flash that day, which I sometimes use to balance the contrast when the light gets really hard. So those are two things that I would normally have in my pocket at a regular session, but neither one was available to me when I needed it. And here's the part that doesn't get said enough. If you're a photographer who's still building confidence in your settings, if manual mode isn't fully on autopilot yet, every single one of these variables becomes twice as hard because your mental bandwidth is already being spent on your exposure decisions, your aperture, your shutter speed, your light changing, and whether you're metering the scene correctly. And now you're also trying to manage uncomfortable subjects on rocky ground and pay attention to a moving light window and deal with the pressure of all the prep that it took to get there and shoot with gear that you're not fully comfortable with. You cannot be fully present for it all at once. Something has to give. And that's not a personal failure. That's just how cognitive load works. You only have so much attention to spend. So when the technical side isn't automatic yet, every environmental variable costs you more than someone whose settings are automatic. That's the double whammy, and it's real. So at the creek session, all of it was happening at once. The light behaving the way that it does at that specific location, moving subjects on unstable footing, my own kids who didn't want to be there, a lens I hadn't gotten comfortable with, no fill flash, and a window of maybe 10 minutes before the good light was gone. Every one of those variables on their own would have been fine, but stacked together in a session you can't easily reschedule with prep hours behind you and two girls in mismatched dresses in front of you. That's what a session that goes sideways actually looks like. And it wasn't bad luck. Every single one of those variables, I could have identified them before I ever got there. I want you to hear this. If a session like that has ever happened to you, you're not bad at this. You are managing an objectively difficult situation, probably without fully knowing what all the variables were even gonna be. I know because I went back and shot at the same creek yesterday in an attempt at a do-over, but we had totally different conditions. It ended up being really overcast and it rained. We didn't get a golden hour at all. I was using a different lens, I had a clearer head about me, and all the photos I came home with last night were completely different. Not because I'm a different photographer, but because I wasn't fighting 5 things at once. The difference between photographers who consistently nail golden hour and photographers who consistently struggle isn't talent, it's preparation and knowing what you're walking into. So what's the thing that would have changed that session? It wasn't a camera setting. If you've ever shot at a beautiful golden hour location and came home wondering what happened, do me a favor and hit the like button. It tells YouTube to put this in front of more photographers who need to hear it. And tell me, if you ever had that golden hour session that didn't turn out the way that you planned, what exactly happened? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not the only person who struggled with this. The thing that would have changed that golden hour creek session and that changes any location-based shoot where light is the variable is scouting. Not a full rehearsal, not a second shoot with everyone in their outfits, just you or you and one easygoing person going to that location before the real session. Same time of day with no pressure and no stakes. The goal here is really simple. Figure out what the light is doing at that specific location before the day that you need to know. Find out where does the sun set relative to where you're standing and which direction gives you the best light. Where does the dappled light fall and how do you get out of it? Do you need a fill flash to balance the contrast? And if so, at what power and from what position? What lens feels right for that space and what settings are you starting with? When you walk into the real situation with all those answers already locked in, you're not problem solving under pressure. You're executing because the technical decisions are already made. Then your whole attention is on the people in front of you, getting their poses right, reading their energy, and catching all the moments that you want to catch. The session that goes wrong is almost always the one where you're figuring things out as the light is moving and your clients are waiting. The session that goes right is the one where all the figuring out already happened before anyone ironed their clothes and drove across town. But this also happens beyond golden hour. Any location where the light is specific and the window is narrow. Try to know this before you need it, because you can't control the weather or how fast the sun is moving, but you can control how prepared you are for what the light is going to do when you get there. And that preparation is what separates the sessions that you're most proud of from the ones that you don't talk about. If you want help navigating natural light situations, not just the perfect golden hour shots, but the tricky ones, the in-between ones, the sessions where the light didn't cooperate the way that you planned, I put together a free PDF called the Easy Lighting Guide. It covers the natural light scenarios that actually trip photographers up, including outdoor and golden hour situations, and gives you a real starting point for each one. The link is in the description. Golden hour isn't a guarantee, as you well know. It's an opportunity. And like most opportunities, it rewards those who show up prepared, who knew what the light was gonna do, had their settings ready, and weren't splitting their attention between figuring it out and getting the shot. Knowing what to expect from the light at your location is one piece of it. And what your camera is actually doing when it tries to meter a high contrast golden hour scene, that's a separate problem that catches a lot of photographers off guard. I have a video on exactly that. Watch the camera meter video next. That high contrast backlit situation is exactly what breaks the meter. And that video explains why.